water under the earth. You shall not worship them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God. God was telling his bride, okay, Israel, saying, look, if this marriage is going to work, number one, I got to be number one. Number two is that you got to speak well of me. You got to speak well about me. If you want the second vow is that if we want to have a long-lasting marriage, a healthy marriage, then we have to speak well of each other. Well, actually, this is what I want to say to you also. God is saying to us that if you, I get this mixed up. In vow number 2, what God is saying to us is that if you want to have a long-lasting marriage, we should not have an idol. Anything that is in likeness of what is in heaven or above. It means that we should not have a substitute in our life. Right? We should not have a substitute. Because since the beginning of time, people have made substitute. We have created images. From the beginning of time, we like to create idols. You know, here's a picture of the gods of Egypt. Okay? The Egyptians have many gods. As a matter of fact, if you remember that in the Old Testament when there was the 10 plagues, okay, a lot of those plagues were actually an attack. God is making fun of the Egyptians' god. Like one example is the frogs. The Egyptians have a god like a frog. Okay? And so when suddenly there's millions of frogs everywhere that's ruining their life, they're saying, look, your God, this is your God. You should love them. And they're all over the place. In their bedrooms, in their kitchens, everywhere. Right? And so there's actually an attack. God is attacking. Hey, they're making fun of them. But soon after Israel came out of Egypt, they tried to make an idol. Right? The golden calf. You see? People by nature wants to make images. A substitute of the real God. And then also the Greek god. You know, here's Zeus, the god of thunder. Okay, and they have many gods as well. They create many, many gods. And we as Asians, we're probably more familiar with this kind of gods. Right? They're everywhere. You know, and again, I'm not trying to make fun, but we create idols and we worship them. But God is saying, don't worship these things. These are substitute. Worship the real one, me, he's saying. Okay? And of course now India being the second is probably Hinduism. Okay? Again, they have thousands of gods. And I just want to encourage you to remember, we do not worship an idol. The living God. And even though today, in our modern time, we may not be worshiping a statue, a wooden statue, but we still may end up, if we don't be careful, we might worship something that is made out of wood too. And it's called paper. And it looks like this. Okay? It's the same thing. It's made out of wood. This is transformed into paper and have some ink and some numbers on it. And we might not be going like this, but in a sense our heart may be worshiping. And God's saying that in marriage, if you want to have a healthy marriage, you should not have a substitute. Because you can be married and still have a substitute. Here's a big substitute for men especially, and you probably know this, okay? Pornography. I mean, one advertisement even put it this way. Porn, it's cheaper than dating. They're saying that, you know, dating is expensive. Starting a relationship, getting married is a very expensive proposition. So why don't you just enjoy porn? They are trying to communicate and saying, look, why don't you put your energy and your passion into pornography? But you see, our passion and our energy, our focus, that should be kept holy, should be only for our spouse. But we often substitute it with something else, in this case called porn. Here's another big substitute for men and women too. It's called career or jobs, okay? Business. Sometimes maybe a man, because he doesn't feel like his wife is really, you know, loving him or, you know, respecting him enough, and the people in his job respects him, and he begins to put his focus, his energy all in his job. So 10, 20, 30 years, he just put his energy into his career. He's married, but suddenly he has a mistress called his career or business. Here's another big substitute mostly for women probably. Do you know what it is? Can you guess what a substitute? That's right, kids, children. Okay. Now, let me, ladies, please, or men and ladies, please listen to me carefully so that you don't misunderstand me. I am not saying that we should not put time and energy to our children. Okay, if I'm saying that, you're going to crucify me, I know that. But what I'm saying is this. Children are really gifts from God, and especially when they're young, they need a lot of our time, our attention, our guidance, our energy, and so on. That's true. But children should never become a substitute to our marriage. Nothing should become a substitute for our marriage. But sometimes, maybe because the wife doesn't feel love, or the husband's not sensitive enough, and so she channels her energy into her children. But I want to tell you something that's also dangerous, that when we do that, we're substituting the real thing, what a marriage should be, and you suddenly put your energy and your love, your everything into your children rather than nurturing our marriage. Now, while I was counseling this couple, I asked them a couple questions. One of the questions I asked them was this: what would you like to see in your marriage that you saw in your parents' marriage? Then the second question I asked was, what you don't want to happen in your marriage that you saw in your parents' marriage? And Lilia's answer was really interesting, and I want to invite her right now. And so she wants to give a testimony because it really supports what I'm trying to say here. So Lilia, can you come up, please? And let's give her a warm welcome. Right?
Hello? Hi. My answer to Pastor Ed's question was, I don't want to put my children before my marriage. And he invited me to share before you why I answered that. And so I wanted to share two things. One of them was why that's a bad thing. And number two is how Vince and I hopefully will avoid that problem. So just to give you an idea of my background, my parents are from Hong Kong, and they had me when they were young, about 25. And when I was about the age of the children in the picture, I think my parents were the best parents that I knew. My mom was like a super mom. She stayed at home. She read to us, she taught us, and got us really involved. We did science projects together and art projects, and put me in every sort of extracurricular activity I ever wanted to. And people, even our neighbors and friends, would pay my mom to look after their kids. She was so good. And my dad was also very, very involved with us. Would take us around and work, bring us to Disneyland and all these things. Anything we ever wanted, he would give us. They were very, very good. But one of the things that they never did, I think, was pay attention to each other. So my brother and I never saw my parents give affection. I think from serving us and being the providers for their children, they were so overwhelmed with the work and the other pressures that they were trying to balance as well with finances, their social lives and stuff like that. So I can see that caused them to be, it pulled them apart. And unfortunately, I don't know if this is the root cause of why their marriage eventually dissolved, but I can see that my parents fell into a lot of other idols, other relationships, financial troubles, and etc. And granted, my parents don't have the benefit of knowing Jesus at the time either, so that was also complicated. So why I think that's a big problem is right now I see especially my younger brothers, never had the benefit of growing up, seeing my parents, what a good marriage is. I think that's very counterproductive, unfortunately. So Vince and I are really hoping that we put our marriage first so that our kids can grow up in a environment. So our kids can grow up in an environment where they know what a happy marriage looks like. So some of the ways that we hope that we can do that is showing affection in front of our kids, really putting our marriage first, like going on vacations with just Vince and I together. And I don't know how that's going to work out practically, but I think Vince and I are motivated to work together to hopefully make it work. So thank you.